The people that know me a little bit better than others, by for example reading all my community posts or joining my Discord, link in the description, you might know that some of the biggest things I like in all of fiction are good character development, and especially something like OCs. OCs is the short term for basically original character, and I feel like my enjoyment from character development, from character creation and OCs especially, kinda shows my entire YouTube career and my relationship to indie animation in general. For that, original OCs have so many unique ideas you never see anywhere else, or you wish you would see anywhere else but like don't, and you're just used to the stuff that the bigger media companies are presenting to you on the dailies, and you just get desensitized to all of those characters that are created by the big media companies nowadays. So I decided to host an OC competition to talk about and rate your OCs you sent me over Discord, alongside with some lore. Like I said, you're supposed to give a little bit information about your characters. Most of you, like usually, completely ignored my advice and sent me 5 pages long of lore of their characters. So I don't want to beat around the bush for any longer and get right into the video. But Raptor, didn't you say you wanted to do a Murder Drones video?
Suck it up, Buttercup.
Hello my little dronies. The first one that was ever submitted was Ace, or another name would be Ace of Space. And just for the future characters, I asked everyone to submit a little bit of lore about them. I'm not going to read it every time, I'm just going to summarize it every time and re-give my representation of what I interpret into it. If you want to read all the original lore statements, then join my Discord, all the messages are still up. This is a Deltarune inspired character, which I'm not too familiar with, but it says that it is a unique character that was formed through magic, and that he can transform into another form, which I'm assuming is the version with armor, which then he gets the name Ace of Spaces. Before he was probably just called Ace, from what I'm assuming. And honestly, the pixel art is very nice, and also the finished art is very good looking. And while I'm not too familiar with the game, I think it's still a unique concept, and design wise the red theme of the hoodie fits very well with the armor that is later also red, combined with all the red hair, has some nice contrast to it. So let's say overall it's a solid 5 out of 10. It's nothing that has never been created before, but it's also simple and unique in its own way. But its simple and clean design makes it very appealing. And honestly, before I go into the next ones, and I know some people might get upset because they don't get enough screen time, or I'm criticizing something because like I know insulting OCs of people is like insulting someone's child. They're going to take it very personally no matter what you do. But just as a disclaimer, just because I give your OC a low rating or something doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that it's not my personal taste, and honestly I love them all and would give them a 10 out of 10 every one, but that would be boring. So instead you can basically imagine it like me giving an 11 out of 10 if I give a 1 out of 10, if you get what I mean. If not, then I'm sorry. Anyways, the next one by mr.krabsx returns is Subject 54A, and it's one of 3 modified murder drone prototypes that were created by the humans to stop the absolute solver before the planet collapsed. And basically she's just a regular drone, like every disassembly drone in the beginning. A special asset full of nanobots or nanites could form gas clouds. I guess because the cloud is laced with nanites, which is the same material which is in the tails of the disassembly drones. It would burn your skin or metal upon contact, which before I go on, I already need to praise this concept, because like always element type of characters, especially something like fire and gas, are like always kind of similar, but every time there's such a unique concept, because the base idea stays always the same, but how you adapt it into every universe is such a cool idea. Besides, I already created one of those kinds of characters myself, but I never really thought of the solution why would drones need gas, because like robots don't need air, but that they laced with nanites makes it such a good twist. But what makes the character interesting is that those that nanite gas, she inhales that constantly, and it causes her a lot of physical and mental pain and kinda drove her crazy. And another thing to mention is she also said that when she was still captured by the humans, she was very afraid and stuff, but she had a cellmate that comforted her. But again, this is only focused on one character. But the design is like a mixture of different things, which honestly kind of reminds me of a PlayStation and an Xbox mixed together with a robot. And also the sword she carries, it reminds me a lot of Berserk. But overall, she constantly breathes out gas, and basically her lungs are filled with that gas. So she breathes air, but breathes out that gas. It's a very interesting concept, especially for art and stuff like that. So I have been yapping for already way too long. I give it a 9 out of 10. Next up is Astro Minion's A7M18. And he was one of the persons that wrote a bunch of lore about the OC down, but it was not very complicated, but a lot of confusing stuff was in it. So if I'm basically getting this right, A7M18 is the robot on the left, and the dark silhouette on the back is basically a Venom-like character called Darkseid, which, if you might guess, is the dark side of this character. And then he continued writing a bunch of other stuff of this entire core, which is basically a bunch of other disassembly drones which are not associated with this absolute solver, but are associated with the absolute clover, like except solver but with a C, but they're functionally basically the exact same. So yeah, design wise, it's honestly, Darkseid is very uninteresting and bland, because you can make silhouette characters work, but like not in this way. But A7M18 has a quite interesting design with a unique color palette, but again, the story isn't very interesting, so that's why I'm giving it a 5 out of 10 as well. Next picture comes by tabbytoadstool and shows a man with blue skin, or maybe it's just the lighting, holding a cup of hot chocolate, which he wrote the character is obsessed with, and he seems to stand in some form of cold environment. While I like the character, it's like nothing special. Personally, I like characters that have something unique about them, like most of the time superpowers or something, because I mean, regular humans can be cool and interesting, but it's not my personal liking. So this is the only reason why I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. But I seriously have to admit that I really like this one, but there's just nothing memorable about it. Like, many characters have something that you remember for a longer time, but this character doesn't have that. That's why it's so low. And the next OC was made with gacha, obviously, and I think it's a circus drone, but what exactly it is quite confusing, because she wrote she isn't a disassembly drone, but is a disassembly drone, because she has tail and wings, but also she's some form of human. But design wise, I like the blue, and in the lore of the character states that she's forced to smile until she unalives, which is something very interesting if you want character development. And design wise alone, of course, like the jester outfit is very easy to remember, but this is not an entirely new concept, because I have seen the idea of disassembly drones and jester outfits done better already, but still I would say like 4 out of 10 would be justified. But next up already is Boombob 3D.
Oh, my silly vanilli, my Pookie Bear.
Sorry. He submitted his character Bruce, and honestly I was expecting someone else, but I'm trying not to be biased. Anyways, Bruce is a pirate with his crew. They call themselves the Boys.
Hey kids.
If I'm getting copyright claim because of you, Boombob 3D, I'm going to cry. And they basically just do odd job to earn themselves money. And an interesting thing is that he wants the money, not because very much of wealth and gain, but actually to help his younger brother, which is super interesting for lore and moral dilemmas and stuff like that. And why I would like to talk about his character even further. I still have like 10 more characters and I don't want to make a 2-part out of this. But design wise alone, I like the muscles, they look very pretty. I like the demon look that he has to him, and also the combination of the knife around his belt. It gives him this barbarian type of look. And in this description says he can easily rip out spines, which is a thing that I very like personally, because my A4 OC does the same thing. So although I am not biased, I still am going to give it a 9 out of 10 regardless. Next up is Spawn, probably a reference to Bonnie from Five Nights at Freddy's. The creator wrote that is in OC he created in 2019. It basically became his mascot channel, similar to what happened to me with R4. He also wrote that the character has a bunch of lore, but he wasn't going to say it, so you would have to go to his YouTube channel, which kinda sounds like he just wanted to have a shout out from me. But honestly, because it's a Five Nights at Freddy's OC, and as a kid I very much did the same and created a bunch of FNAF OCs, so I can very relate, so I'm keeping his submission in. But otherwise it looks like a mixture of Bonnie and Freddy. And yeah, there's not much else to say. Like, I would go to his YouTube channel and check it out, but like, I don't have that many time. I love all of you guys' OCs and reading about them, but I seriously don't have enough time to go into depth by every single one of them, because you want this video to be out someday. The next OC comes by Roxx, which is an amazing voice actor, just saying. But she submitted a character, her Ishi, and first of all, submitted 2 pictures. One is very bright, but honestly, as an artist that uses lighting also very much, I can relate. But it says that she's an egotistical yet fragile being created from lava, but he wasn't accepted by others because he is different. So many people just used him and backstabbed him in the end. So the way he learned to survive basically is to be a backstabber himself, and that learned the craft of manipulation. But the creator also says this way of life later creates his downfall. So honestly, a villain arc to the character, which is super interesting to me. The art itself is decent, I can't complain about it, I like it. But like, the story of a character that is creating his own downfall, but you still can kinda root for him because of his sympathetic reasons. And I honestly say because of the backstory, 10 out of 10. But next up is a Murder Drones OC once more. He is 20 years old and his name is Adam Saw, and he is kind of a medical doctor, but for drones basically. But he embraced that feeling, or like that the fact of being a robot way more, and is kinda more cold to other drones. And although he still is a doctor, he is very monotone and doesn't have many emotions, or like he says he's allergic to emotions. I don't know if he means it word for word or like in a metaphor way. But this character honestly gives me like from a show, not the main character vibes, but like one of those side characters that doesn't appear often, but is always beloved by the fans and doesn't overstay his welcome. But some people would wish him to see more, like those typical characters that people say is underappreciated. He also described his personality, a mix from Thawne from Star Wars and Sekku from Dr. Stone. And honestly, I really find those 2 characters interesting. So I think 7 out of 10 would do it justice. But honestly, he says that this is his first time being in a OC contest like this. But honestly, he says this is his first time doing something like this. And I'm very sad that I couldn't give you more attention in general. But honestly, I didn't expect myself to get so many submissions at a time. I expected like 4, 5, maybe 6, but not almost 20. So on to the next one. Next up is a character from I don't know how to pronounce your name and I don't want to butcher it on a YouTube video. His character is called 𝑦. And fun fact, Y is one of the characters in my Motherverse comic. If I ever finish this one, don't worry, it will come one day. And I don't want to say too much, but he is another drone, a Nova drone, which is basically Nova is a rival company to JC Jensen. And he is reprogrammed by Nova, and he is also a hacker, but I can't say much furthermore. He also didn't wrote much more, but like again, he is the character that is going to appear in my comic. A little bit changed, but like still the same character somewhat. But design wise, it has something simple but yet so clean to it. Like there are no major details, but yet still what I have complained about by other characters I see sometimes. I feel like this green hood and green pants, green hat, all of those seem memorable at least. Maybe I have seen it too many times already, but like I feel like this design, although there's nothing much going on, there is still something like to remember. Like it's difficult to explain and you maybe don't get it what I mean, but like I feel it's a great and memorable design and it looks very good too, so I'm honestly saying 7 out of 10. Next up is one that is a bit more complicated and also has a bit of confusing lore, at least for me, but the next is Abby, and she's kind of a worker drone, but not quite, because she's more of a helper drone, I think he said. And her personality is that she's very playful and also very intelligent, and likes tactical operations and problem solving. But sometimes she's overconfident and doesn't realize the impact of her actions. And honestly, I want to focus more on the design, which is very great. It's super cheerful and pink, obviously. You can see a bunch of tentacles, I think, that are holding different tools. So she has a lot of utility and also fits her character very well. The intelligent part I can see the joyful part, I can see that she's a technician, I can see like I could have basically thought of all the points I just said by just seeing the picture alone. So a good thing about OCs is everything if you already know stuff about them without even having to know the lore, like if you can see physical description about it and already know what the character is about, this immediately gives it a really good rememberability. And overall I don't have much to say to this, I just like it overall. 5 out of 10 honestly. Or let me rephrase that, 6 out of 10 actually. Next up is a character I already kinda covered in the beginning, because remember when I talked about how you're supposed to share a little information and I showed this whole text of a bunch of information about one OC? Well, this is that one. And basically I've read the entire document and it's very confusing, or at least I didn't probably understand it, but all the things I understand is that the character is a incomprehensible creature that is the reincarnation of the Grim Reaper. And also a fun fact, or like something that she mentions alongside the video often, a fun fact or something that she mentions multiple times is that he is apparently the biggest V-simp, which is very funny to me. But I'm just going to focus on the design alone because this is enough topic for me to cover, like, because she not only showed this picture but also 4 others alongside this picture, which she told me I need before I'm going to make this video, but I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with it. Anyways, the design really sells like this being that is incomprehensible with the entire space theming and aura and stuff around him. It really looks great, and also his magic katana, what I'm thinking is he behind his back, is also a really great design. I honestly really like it, and his body is mostly covered in shadows in all of the drawings, but from what I can see from the armor, it looks really cool and interesting, and it even has like tiny spikes on the boots, which I find a very cool design choice honestly. But there was another picture included in this raster of pictures which I haven't shown yet, which I don't know why it's there, which is very confusing, but maybe as far as I've read, maybe it's a different incarnation of him in like a Megalodon's like body. I really don't, I really couldn't piece this together, but like the normal design is well and good, and I would give it a solid 6 out of 10. But this other design of V goes absolutely crazy with this giant blade and like this red crown and all around the red dress with the accents all around her. Is a solid 10 out of 10 because it looks incredibly good and fits so well. She really looks like a death goddess or something, and just everything goes together perfectly. And like I really don't know what else to say except that I really like this part, and I kind of split up the scores because one of them is so good that the other one is also good, but I didn't quite understand how the character worked. So, but speaking about not understanding something, the next one is a Megalodon's OC once again. It didn't have text included, but it had some text on the picture. However, due to the not so good quality, I couldn't read the text properly, except that he's named serial designation K. So again, I'm going to go over the design, and it's a basic disassembly body in like a military outfit with pockets and a little symbol above his chest, probably some metal or something. You can also see a bit of the hair on the head. Like the head looks different to looks similar to N's, but also different in a unique way, which honestly is kind of cool. So I'm giving this one a 4 out of 10. Next up is Volzep, and it's Among Us OC actually, and the description basically reads like a creepypasta, so that he got stuck in the defeat screen and from there corrupted the game itself. And design wise it's like an Among Us figure, so nothing special, but I kind of like the fourth wall breaking here, so I'm giving it a 4 out of 10 again. Now we finally came to the last 3 OCs, which was a long time to get here. If I'm guessing, probably like 18 minutes. But the last 3 ones are going to be bangers, because they're all kinda related to Sin in a way. Let me explain. The first one is a Sin OC. From what I understand, is basically another swap AU. If you don't know what a swap AU is, it's basically like taking the gender or taking the role of a character and swapping it out with a different character to see what happens. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. It's very hit or miss. In this case, things are swapped around and Sin is a disassembly drone. Still evil, but she's pretending to be good. J and N are still disassembly drones, but like the personality of N and V are kind of swapped, so that's interesting, having an insane N and a cute sympathetic V. Honestly, with how made V was, I can see that, but it's not focused on them, it's focused on this Sin. And this Sin, honestly, I've seen many disassembly on Sin designs, and this is really a good one. Besides that, it's based on the version of Sin that I personally enjoy the most. It has this cute and innocent persona, but you still can recognize that it's a threat, which I feel like is what defines Sin, because she's like this cute innocent thing that is the most destructive thing you can imagine, but her cuteness is also a part of her personality, which I feel like this design shows very well with all the rounded features of the legs and the body and stuff. Makes it appear very cute, but if you realize that what it is, it's a disassembly drone and it's Sin. It pushes this up a lot, and I'm saying 7 out of 10, could be 8 out of 10, but I'm going to be 7 out of 10. Next up is another OC, which is related to Sin, but by a person called Sin on the Discord, and this is Scarlet. I don't know if I have to blur the picture or not, but if I'm going to blur the picture, she's holding a human heart in her hands. I'm going to get demonetized, holy sh. But anyways, the character was an orphan and had to teach everything herself, and after some time she picked up a job in her old coffee shop. She worked in that coffee shop for years and also bought herself a uniform, and I'm going to quote the author on this. She wears it as casual clothes. Not much happening yet, but cute, with a smiley face. Fast forward a few months, she's reminded of how worse she started to live up and to grow up all alone, had to teach everything herself, and those dark thoughts corrupted her, and all of a sudden she was a cannibalist. That escalated quickly, but she isolated herself in a small room in said cafeteria where she always worked on, and she basically went completely insane because at one point her sanity tells her she doesn't want to eat humans, but she also wants to eat humans. And yeah, and this was the only character that has heights given, so I'm going to mention that she's 160 centimeters of 5 feet and 2.992 inches. Yeah, you guys know I love character sizes, but this is the first OC that had them included. But anyways, the design looks really cool, and honestly I don't think it's just a normal waitress or like an orphan kid, because the hands look very black, and I mean, again, she's holding her heart emoji in her hand. I don't think you're supposed to do that, but honestly, that living in this small cafeteria that people always visit, and like you really don't know the horror is there, but underneath the floorboard or wherever the small cabin is, she's hiding there and possibly about to attack you, is such a nice horror thing. Originally I was just going to give it a 9 out of 10, but this subtle element of horror adds to it even more, so I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. And at last is another Sin OC, but like a different one. She's called Syl, and Syl is amazing, beautiful, a wonderful creature, and I'm definitely not being held at gunpoint right now. Jokes aside, my entire Discord loves this creature so much, and I feel like if I say one thing wrong, either the creator is going to kill me, my Discord is going to kill me, or Syl herself is going to kill me. And I don't even need to read the description, because the entire Discord server is such obsessed with Syl. Honestly, me too. I think a lot of it is because she's basically a stronger version of Sin, which she's the absolute solver incarnated. After the solver took control over Sin, he used her to build her a perfect body basically, and that body was basically Syl, and she has some really huge god complex, like thinks of her as the perfect being and stuff like that, and also is like very silly like Sin herself. And honestly, a lot of her personality is just being carried by Sin, but there's some few small quirks that make her really funny and interesting and relatable. Like for example, she's obsessed with waffles. Like at one point where she was destroying a planet, she found a waffle house and stayed there for a couple of days, just relaxing and not killing anyone, until they ran out of waffles before she continued to bring absolute carnage on them. And honestly, from most of the OCs, this is probably the one with content of her, because some of the background music you hear is about Syl. The artist is very much still active and posting about her. She's working on a comic right now. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell this, but this comic is also going to be released on my channel if it's done, and she might be included in further projects in the future of me. And there's also a plushie version of her that exists out there, which I can't say this one about R4 or any of the other OCs, so I'm a little bit jealous. But yeah, I would say something like 7 out of 10, because at itself I strongly believe that a core part of her personality is carried by Sin from Murder Drones. But the fact that she's so beloved, I would have to give her 11 out of 10. So we make a peace agreement and say just 10 out of 10 is fine enough. Is that rating good enough?
I'm gonna gaslight everyone into loving me.
And with this concludes this long video. I'm not trying to do a long outro because I think I cracked the 20-minute mark again. It's exhausting, but again, as I said in the beginning, I hope I did this well and none of you are offended, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but again, all the OCs are 10 out of 10s for me. It's just that it wouldn't be an interesting video if every single character is a 10 out of 10. And yeah, again, I wish I could have talked about every character a little bit more, but again, those 20 minutes long video that it is right now is just a little bit much, and I don't want to talk because I'm already going to have to edit all of this. But I'm trying to be a bit more active now. We have to see how it works out with school and stuff like that. But anyways, we'll see us in the next one. And remember,
I'm gonna throw myself off the building and drag Syl into it because she deserves it. Nobody likes you, you unworthy piece of shit, old Syl. Anyway.